Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I am bringing you guys the start of a new series, or if you guys are watching this in numerical order, you guys are maybe on probably like your 18th episode, because I'm going to be going all the way from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, all the way to the current years, and go with the top 10 commons that were printed out in every single year. So this time we're going to be starting off with the top 10 commons that came out this past year in 2020. And then after this, I'll probably go back to 2002, which was when the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG started, was March 2002. And we'll work our way up to the present time. But there were so many great commons that came out this year that I wanted to go over the ones that came out this year. And then we'll go back a little bit later. But overall, this could be a really fun series. Please like the videos if you guys enjoy this. That way I know to keep making this. Hopefully you guys do enjoy it, and I'm really excited to talk because, like I said, there were just so many great commons that came over this year. It was really hard to just knock it down to 10. So the criteria for this video is going to be a little more casual, you know, like it doesn't have to be super duper strict on what cards go in, what cards don't. There's a mix of like really generic cards as well as extra deck and main deck monsters, main deck spells, traps, all that kind of stuff. But basically, like for any cards that have potential to be really good in the future, as well as cards that are really great right now, sort of, you know, like anything is fair game. So these are all cards that were common printed first this year. So like anything that would get reprinted in a common, like in the Megatins and stuff, I'm not paying attention to any of that kind of stuff. So just keep all of that in mind as well. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoy this new series. Again, please hit that like button if you guys enjoy this. This is going to be the first one, and then it's going to cut back to 2002. So I don't know if you guys are watching this numerically in the future, like the whole set and everything could look really weird because it could evolve or change over time, and the quality of the video could end up being like direly bad. I don't know, but if you guys enjoy this, I will definitely keep on making it. So let me know again in the comments what you guys think, and also let me know in the comments if there's any commons that you guys thought deserved to be on this top 10 list. Anything that you guys thought was snubbed, anything that really boosted up your archetype, or just cards that are very generic that you think could be abused in the future or are being abused right now. Just let me know. So without any further ado, let's get on with the list. So for our number 10 slot, we're going to have to go with the entire Megalith archetype. This one, you know, kind of speaks for itself. Like, Megaliths haven't really been doing anything super duper crazy as of late, or even like when they started, but they had their debut in Ignition Assault, and then they've also had new printings. I believe that Megalith Auk came out in, I want to say, Rise of the Duelist. So they've been getting like a little bit of new support. That's kind of how they generally do some of these newer archetypes. They'll give it support once, and then like in the next core set or the one following, they'll give a little bit more support. But yeah, everything has been printed at common except for like one or two of the spell or trap cards, and like one of the monsters, which is Megalith Ophiel. And so Ophiel is a really great searcher for the deck, but besides that, we have the other cards. We have like Auk, and we have Bethor. Bethor is really great for just clearing your opponent's boards and whatnot. So yeah, overall, like the entire archetype is actually pretty decent. Obviously, Rock's got a lot of new support this year with the Adamancipators, and so the Megaliths being a ritual rock deck, as well as being a ritual deck, because there's a lot of ritual support. We have Drytrons, which just came out like a month ago. We have Dogmatika, as well as like Incantation's been around for quite a while now. So yeah, overall, I think that Megalith like has been doing pretty well for a common print deck. Fool was the one that came out in Rise of the Duelist. Looks like I'm the fool. So for our number 9 slot, we're going to have to go with Jack in the Hand. This is one of my favorite new spell cards that came out of Phantom Rage. It hasn't seen a whole lot of competitive use, but I think that there is a little bit of like use that could be done for like more rogue and fun decks. But what Jack in the Hand does is that it allows you to take 3 different level 1 monsters out of your deck, and your opponent picks 1 to add to their hand. You then get to pick 1 to go to your hand, and then the third card, which was not selected, just gets shuffled back into your deck. So the application for this card, is sort of astronomical. There's a lot of decks that run at least one level 1 monster, and then, possibly even 2, 3. Drytron is all level 1s. The only problem with that is that Drytron can kind of like spam out its own resources relentlessly enough without this card. So again, like I said, it's not really going to be for competitive use, but decks like Karibo, like fun decks, Karibo decks. You have Ghost Tricks, obviously with the artwork. They're kind of telling us to use this in a Ghost Trick deck. I'm not really sure how great that is. I play Ghost Tricks, and still I would probably just prefer not to. It's already hard enough to sort of compile that into a 40 card deck as is. But overall, this is a really great way to search out level 1 monsters. If you have 3 level 1 monsters that do not like help your opponent at all, then basically, like, let's say that DDD Crow and Effect Veiler do not hurt you, but it absolutely cripples your opponent's deck. Either one of those, then basically you can do those two, and then whatever deck you're running, let's say that you're running a plant deck and you do Lone Fire Blossom or Evil Thorn, we'll say Evil Thorn, Lone Fire Blossom's level 3 maybe. But I do know that Evil Thorn is a level 1 monster, so you add those 3 cards to your hand, your opponent figures Effect Veiler is probably the most generic. They take the Effect Veiler, and then you take the DDD Crow, or if the Evil Thorn is what you want to combo off, then you just go for it. So overall, I do think that this card has a little bit of application for those decks that just like need a little help going, or you can use it really strategically and, just get a really good hand trap to your hand as long as it doesn't really affect your deck. Like, it's hard to say now, but I think that we could see this card do a little bit of work for some of these rogue decks. Now, coming into our number 8 slot, I obviously had to talk about this at some point, and I'm really sad that it had to come this low on the list, but we're going to have to go with Infernoble Knight Captain Roland. So overall, Roland is a very great card for the Infernoble deck. The only problem is that it's like not as generic as we maybe like. It is a generic synchro, but level 5s are a little bit awkward. The one great thing that it does have going for it on the flip side is basically the same thing, that it is a level 5, because there's a lot of decks that could just use an extra generic level 5 monster. There's stuff like Naturia Beast, which is a little too specific, needing earth monsters for its synchro summon, but the Roland is super duper generic. And if you're running a deck that is spamming out synchros and uses a lot of equip spells and stuff, if there's some sort of synergy, like, you could potentially do that. Obviously, the Infernoble deck did take a significant hit on the last ban list with Link Cross and the Smoke Grenade getting hit, but overall I do think that this card is still going to be a key piece for the deck. It can equip itself onto other stuff, and it can pitch stuff into the graveyard and get a warrior to hand. Yeah, that's a pretty good generic as well as archetype specific synchro monster, and great card to be printed as a common. Okay, and so for our number 7 slot, I'm going to have to go with the Virtual World Shell Jaja. So I've really been loving this card. This is a great card for the Virtual World strategy. Also, the Virtual World was pretty budget before people realized just how to use and abuse the deck, but overall it's still sitting at a decent price range. We'll definitely see the prices drop once True King of All Calamities gets dealt with on a future ban list. So anyways, what does the Jaja do? So its requirements are 2 or more level 3 monsters, which generally you're just going to be doing the 2 monsters, but you have the potential to do more. But what it does is that you detach material and then target a face-up monster on the field, and that cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. And then another effect of it is that after damage calculation, after Jaja battles an opponent's monster, as long as you have 2 monsters chilling in your graveyard with the same attribute and type, then you get to banish that monster. This is non-targeting and non-destruction removal on a rank 3 monster. Super good. And what does this card stop, everybody? This card. Yeah. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon gets taken out by this thing. This thing gets beaten by this thing. Like, it's so cute too, and it like looks like It's like it looks like a worm version of like Lapras, and its tail kind of looks like Parallel Exceed. So I just really like this card. But overall, a generic XZ monster that can get over a lot of really towering problems. I think that is really great and deserves a little bit of recognition. It's a little bit more useful and generic than the Roland, which is why it found a higher spot on this list. And now for our number 6 slot, we're going to have to give this one to Gravity Controller. Coming out in the first TCG core set of 2020, Ignition Assault, Gravity Controller is a very great generic Link 1 monster with some pretty good capabilities. So for its summon, you do need a monster in the extra monster zone that is not a Link monster, so that's where you kind of come into some problems. The best application for this card is basically to use like an XZ monster or a Synchro or something that you've already gotten your use out of. Basically, the best one that comes to mind is something like Dugaris the Timeless, which you use its effect, detach 2 materials, you get off its really good effect, and then it just kind of sits there as a dead card, which is a great time for you to just link away into your Gravity Controller. So, Gravity Controller, what do? So, cannot be used as link material the turn that it is link summoned. However, you can use it on your following turns. Another really great move to do with this is just to summon this, put it in the extra monster zone, and then you do have that one arrow where you could eventually point to like an IP Masquerena or something, and then on your opponent's turn do the great Nightmare Unicorn or Phoenix, Cerberus play, whatever you want to do. You can definitely link away with it on your opponent's turn. Then also with this card, while it is in the extra monster zone, it cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster in the main monster zone. So this card just kind of wrecks Dino. It doesn't wreck dinos, but it is resistant to dinos or like monarchs. So overall, the competitive application for this card is not super great. However, if this card does attack a monster in the extra monster zone, you get to both pop both that card as well as Gravity Controller back into the extra deck. So basically it's just like a extra deck monster version of your Neospatian Grand Mole, or however you want to look at it. Nowadays we do have stuff like the Alpha, which came out in Phantom Rage, but that is a like $40 secret rare. So overall, for more budget players, people who are playing like XZs, where you've already utilized all their XZ materials, this is just a pretty good option to go into. You just got to make sure that that XZ monster is in the extra monster zone. That way you can link it away and go into Gravity Controller for a little bit of spot removal, or just to stall and keep something on board if your opponent's just using those main monster zones. Okay guys, so now we are in the top 5, which means that we are getting to the creme de la creme of 2020 common print cards. And for our number 5 slot, we have got to give this one to Splash Mage. So Splash Mage came out as a common in Eternity Code this past year, and Eternity Code was a really great set. It came out with our newest best boss monster for Link summoning, which was Access Code Talker. He was sort of like the big bad guy of the year. As far as Link summoning goes, like we've had a Boral Sword Dragon, we've had Appaloosa sort of had her time, as well as a few other really great Link 4 monsters. However, now has been the time for Access Code Talker. He is just so great at closing out games. So a really great way to facilitate that is with Splash Mage. So Splash Mage requires 2 Cyberse monsters for its Link summon. I believe it has 2 really weird arrows going like that way. I think I'm right. But yeah, so it's kind of awkward. But basically what it does is that once per turn, you are allowed to summon a Cyberse monster from your graveyard onto your field. And so yeah, you just get a free Cyberse monster. It's like there's a handful of like really good Cyberse decks out there that can use and abuse this card. If you're playing this in Salamangrates, the really great thing to do with this is that if you cannot extend into like Update Jammer and then into Access Code, then all you do is you summon out your Splash Mage. The better one to go into is it's sort of its counterpart from Savage Strike, which was Update Jammer. However, if you don't have the extender pieces to go like Update Jammer into Transcode Talker, then you just go Splash Mage, into some, bring something back, go into transcode talker. Transcode brings you your splash mage, and then you go into your access code talker. So overall, this card is really great. The downside is that it locks you into cybers, but for any kind of cybers deck, this card is super duper great. And again, this is the common video, so if you can't afford access code talker, then your next best bet is to just still go into transcode talker, and transcode talker is going to do a lot of the same kind of game ending that your access code talker can do. Okay, and going on into our number 4 slot, this is a personal favorite of mine just because I've been playing Dragon Link for a long time now, but we are going to have to give the number 4 slot to Noctivision Dragon. Obviously, I had to put this a little bit higher because Splash Mage is already kind of taken out by Update Jammer, which is a little bit better in my opinion, but yeah, so we had to go a little bit higher for the Noctivision Dragon because this card is just such a great extender for the Dragon Link deck. Even though, again, Dragon Link has so many weapons at its disposal, this card is just so good. And especially once Power Creep gets there far enough, if they ever let Dragon Rulers off of the ban list, this card could be really helpful as well, because it is a level 7 dragon, which is an important thing to keep in mind when you're looking at the Dragon Rulers. So anyways, what does Noctivision Dragon do that makes it so good? Well, when it is in your hand, if your opponent targets one of your face-down cards with a card effect, you can banish Noctivision Dragon from your hand in order to negate that effect, and then your opponent can no longer target that face-down card with card effects for the rest of the turn. That doesn't come up very often unless you have something like an Infinite Impermanence or something sitting face down, especially if you're playing Dragon Link. You're almost never going to use that. However, the next two effects are what make this card so good for Dragon Link. So, if you summon a dark dragon monster to your field, you can just special summon Noctivision Dragon from your hand. This is a hard once per turn on this effect, as well as its third effect, I guess you could call it. But anyways, what its third effect is that when you link it away for a link summon, you get to draw a card. Draw a card. Draw a card. Like, that is so good. It summons itself to the field. I mean, did you see this card's defense? It has got a trunk for some reason. It has 0 attack, but I mean, it's a big defense wall. You're never going to use it for a defense wall. But then when you link it away, and if you have one dark dragon monster, which is probably going to be your striker dragon if you're playing Dragon Link, then you summon this card, link it away for Romulus. Romulus will search you either your field spell or your equip spell for Dragoonides. And then after that, then you get to draw a card off of your Noctivision Dragon. This card is just so good for Dragon Link. Helps you to extend, and then it replaces itself in your hand. This card just sort of has it all for dragons. But it is specific to dragons, and more specifically kind of like Rocket Guard Dragon, Dragon Link. So you're not really going to be able to splash this too much in with like a Blue Eyes deck, because those are primarily going to be light dragons. But coming in at our number 3 slot is going to, of course, be Geonator Transversor, which is the new Link 2 monster that just came out in Phantom Rage a few months ago. Geonator Transversor is a card that actually has been seeing quite a bit of competitive play, so I really did have to mention it in this video, and I super duper love this card. When this card came out, I thought this is exactly what Link monsters were designed for. This is like the reason why they're supposed to have Link arrows, and Geonator Transversor really sticks with that theme really well. So what Geonator Transversor does requires 2 effect monsters for its summon, so super duper generic. It is a Link 2 Rock Earth monster, so you know, more rock support, Adamanticators. But basically what this card does is that while it is linked to any monsters, both itself as well as its linked monsters cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And then non-targeting effect, you can, whenever it is pointing to 2 monsters with its 2 arrows that are going like that, it's kind of like discoing. Whenever it is pointing to 2 monsters, you get to switch the monsters. But if you guys have been paying attention to this video, I already mentioned with the Jaja that you kind of have to take into consideration really powerful boss monsters like Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. And this card is so great for stealing Red Eyes Dark Dragoon and permanently stealing it. And then also adds a little bit of extra protection in case your opponent negates Red Eyes Dark Dragoon's effects. Now it has non-destruction protection from your Geonator Transversor. Like, this card literally just takes Dragoon and just goes, hey. But yeah, overall, super duper love the card. It was great as a generic common Link 2 for us all to get. And it has been seeing quite a bit of competitive play and quite a bit of competitive success. So really glad that we got this card. And yeah, I really am excited to see what it does in the future. Okay, but coming on into our number 2 slot, we have another personal favorite of mine, which is Dogmatika Punishment. So I've been playing Dogmatika for quite a bit of time. It is an extremely expensive deck until you get to the trap card, because Dogmatika Punishment, for some reason, was printed as a common. And it has actually been seeing quite a bit of competitive success outside of Dogmatikas. People have been playing this in a lot of different decks. Like, we have a lot of decks like Paleos, and Eldritch, which plays a lot of trap cards. You know, like Paleo Eldritch is actually a deck, so you're definitely probably going to be seeing this card in there as well. But what Dogmatika Punishment does is that it lets you target one face-up monster your opponent controls and send one monster from your extra deck with an equal or higher attack than that monster, and then you destroy that monster on the field. So your monster gets sent to the graveyard from your extra deck, and then their monster gets destroyed on the field, which is really great just for any kind of graveyard setup that you need. You can use this to combo with the Fossil Warrior Skull Knight, as well as Elder Entity Natis, Herald of the Arclight. You know, with Herald of the Arclight, it doesn't have a whole lot of attack, so that's going to be a little bit tougher. However, you do have a lot of great weapons in the Dogmatika deck, especially you have stuff like sending anything from your Invoked engine if you just need to get another fusion in the graveyard. Again, you're going to send Natis for that. Then you can go for your Invoked Aguides. If you need to get a Dogmatika to your hand, then you just send the Titaniclad to the graveyard. And then if you're just trying to get your Shadal engine going, then you send your Shadal App Cologne or whatever of the Shadals that you have to send from the extra deck to the graveyard. This card is just super great, especially for the Dogmatika Invoked Shadal deck, and can be splashed into a myriad of decks, anything that wants to set up their graveyard, as well as do a little bit of extra spot removal. The biggest downside to this card is that it does lock you out of your extra deck until the end of your next turn. So the biggest benefit to playing this card is you play it on your opponent's turn, especially if you're doing something like with the Shadals. Then you get your Shadal Schism into your hand by sending your Op Cologne during your opponent's turn. Then during your turn, it really doesn't matter if you do any extra deck summoning anyways. Then on your opponent's turn during their standby phase, you activate that Shadal Schism, and then bam, you get out your Shadal Winda, and you're good to go. So, not to mention the fact that your Dogmatika Punishment is sending one of your Shadal monsters into the graveyard, your App Cologne, which means you have one out of your 2 materials to fusion summon that Winda. So this card just works super great. Again, it can be splashed into a lot of decks. It doesn't really matter that you get locked out of your extra deck for certain decks. So overall, this card is really great. It's still pretty generic, so I wanted to give it a spot in my number 2 slot. Also, this wouldn't be your run-in-the-mill top 10 video if we didn't add in at least 5 honorable mentions. So I wanted to add in a couple here that you know, were really great common cards that just could not fit in for this top 10 list because they were either too specific for their archetype or something like that. So I'm just going to sort of spout them off. We have UA Playmaker. Playmaker is just so good for the deck because it is basically a Dark Ruler No More for the entire deck. We have Melfi Hide and Seek, which is actually generic for just beast monsters. So it's really great just sort of as a pot of avarice every single turn to shuffle 3 beasts back into the deck, and then you get to draw 1 card, which is super duper great. Also, it adds a little bit of destruction protection, so you can't really go wrong there. Also, then we have like Edge Imp, Scythe, and Fluffle Dolphin for the Fluffle and Edge Imp decks. I just really don't know too much about those to really expand on that, but they do seem like really great cards, especially the Edge Imp, for basically just being a polymerization in hand for the entire deck, as well as counting for a material. Then we have to talk about Golden Hair, the newest Plunder Patrol. I've been playing Plunder Patrol ever since it came out in Ignition Assault. And when Golden Hair came out in Eternity Code, it was just that final push that the deck needed, just so you could get a little bit of graveyard setup and whatnot for your deck, which is just amazing. Then we have to talk about Banquet of Millions, because this is a trap card that just came out in Phantom Rage, which basically banishes both players' extra decks. The biggest downside is that it is going to only banish your opponent's extra deck until the end of the turn. So the biggest brain play to use this in is with like a Gren Maju deck. So if your opponent is about to go full combo and then you just banish your extra deck, which banishes their extra deck until the end of the turn, they basically can't do anything, so they just have to pass turn to you. Then you go into Gren Maju Daiza. By default, you automatically have 15 cards banished, and now you can just OTK your opponent for a whole lot of damage. And then for our final honorable mention, we got to talk about a really great continuous spell card, Ancient Warriors Saga East by South Winds. Probably the longest card text name in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! History, but basically what this card does is that once it hits the graveyard, it makes it so all of your Ancient Warriors, when they attack, they can destroy an extra monster on the field, which is pretty darn good, because then you can just burn out your opponent's entire board by declaring attacks, destroy something, and then destroy another card, and then pound them for direct damage, which is really, really cool. And for our number one spot, I couldn't have picked any different card on this list. And if you guys haven't figured it out already, this is a Cyberse monster that definitely exceeded our expectations. All puns aside, we gotta be talking for our number one slot about Parallel Exceed. So Parallel Exceed came out this past year in Eternity Code and has just really been doing a lot of great things for basically any deck that can fit 3 extra cards into the main deck. It is a great extender. We've already talked about Noctivision Dragon and how it's a really great extender just for Dragon. But yeah, this card, like, you'd think at some point on this card it would say something about being locked into Cyberse monsters or anything like that. However, there are no limitations on this. Also, when this card came out, I thought that this card was specifically for XZ summoning, because when this card is special summoned onto the field, it becomes a level 4 monster as long as it was special summoned by its own effect. So the really crazy thing was I thought that this was just for like rank 4 spamming. However, this card can be used for anything while on the board. You could use it for tribute summoning if you really needed to. You could use it for, you can use it for anything. You can basically, one of the best things to do with this is using it in Salamangrates. You can then just link climb so hard. Basically, if you can get a Parallel Exceed off, then you can easily link climb into your access code talker and OTK your opponent, because you're going to end up with as many attributes as you need to destroy things. Like, you're probably going to be ending with 3 different attributes in your graveyard if you're playing things correctly, which is going to be amazing. So it does basically anything that you need it to do. When it comes to XZ summonings, you can use this just for a simple rank 4 play, going on into stuff like Abyss Dweller and Baguska. The sky is really the limit with this card, and it being printed as a common was super great. It's already been reprinted as an OTS, I believe as a super rare. You could definitely correct me if I'm wrong there, but yeah, overall this was a really great common printing, and being able to play it at 3 in the deck and being able to utilize its effect to summon out at least 2 copies is really, really great. There's not really a great way to recycle it yet, so that 3rd copy is just going to be sitting in your deck pretty much dead. But if you utilize this in Cyberse decks, especially Salamangrates, there is a lot of great ways that you can use it for, like discarding off of Flame Buffalo and whatnot. This card just has so much potential and is super duper great. I wouldn't doubt it if this card would eventually get limited or semi-limited. We could end up seeing this chilling next to Destiny Hero Malicious on the semi-limited list someday, but even then, like, it wouldn't be horrible. Then you're just playing it as a 2 of in the deck, and then you're never going to have that 3 of in the deck to brick off of. But anyways, guys, that is going to do it for today's list. Thank you guys so much for joining with me on this being my first ever episode doing the top 10 commons. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Hopefully maybe some of you guys in the future are sort of watching this whole thing unfold. Maybe you guys have already watched episodes from when Yu-Gi-Oh! Started back in 2002, 3, and 4 and all that stuff. And hopefully you're coming here at the tail end of things in the future. Hopefully things are going great. 2021 is going great so far, so hopefully you guys are doing great in the future or wherever in time you guys are sitting. Don't forget to subscribe and also check out the Patreon if you guys are interested in helping me put these lists together and whatnot. We could sort of start up a discussion feed and whatnot. That way you guys can help me put together these top 10 lists. Don't forget to subscribe if you guys want to check out more of my top 10 videos and any other deck profiles and other discussion videos that you guys want to check out. Thank you guys so much for watching and liking the video, which I know that you've done. And we'll see you guys next time.